Hello, welcome to the First Issue Club. We're your weekly comic book podcast. We're just like Sue Storm. We love a good read. We're very excited to talk about comic books today and comic book news. This is a special remote edition because everybody is sick edition. Get your yawns and coughs out, Vargas.
I'm not sick. I'm just tired.
He's just tired. So I'm sick. He's tired. We're sick and tired. Greg is out with the sick kid this week. I've been feeling woozy all day long. Pollen is at head exploding levels in the Midwest, and I think that's what's made its way to me. However, we will persevere.
The love of
Because
comics makes us
that's right.
persevere.
Comics are at stake here, and spreading the gospel of comics is my true mission in life. I'm devoted to it more than anything else. So let's get into some of this exciting stuff after we talk about a wonderful beverage that this beautiful podcast is brought to you by Boulevard Brewing Company's Space Camper Cosmic IPA, a beautiful hoppy beverage that tastes oh so good, whether you're a beer snob or a beer newbie. I think this is an IPA that's friendly enough for us all to get along with. So
I
get you some.
decided that I need to go out and buy a 12-pack of Chill Break, specifically to have for when we do remote,
Yes.
because it's my
Chill
favorite.
Chill Break is their a little more, I guess, maybe even session-y kind of summer version of the Space Camper.
Yes.
There's a lot of different varietals for a lot of different types of hop lovers. There's, double IPAs that'll hit you in the head. And then there's Chill Break, which is a little lower ABV, a little easier to drink, and a really nice summer IPA. So something for everybody. Get you some Space Camper, the best beer in the galaxy.
We love you, Boulevard.
Thank you, Boulevard.
Before we get to this week's comics, as always,
Yeah.
we have to talk about comic book news. Today was preview magazine day for me from my LCS. They got all the preview magazines in stock, so I flipped through them.
Do you want a comic shop news?
No.
I don't want a comic shop news. The answer is always no.
That is correct.
People take them out of courtesy.
That is correct. And
we like previews. Previews you could probably charge people $1 for. Do you pay for previews or are they always free?
They're always, no. Well, I should specify. I did not get previews. Previews the magazine. Because that's sold by Diamond and it costs $10.
$10, jeez.
I get the free stuff that the publishers put out because I'm a cheap shill. So
yes.
I don't know what Image is coming out because they don't have a free magazine. Mm-hmm. I don't know what Dark Horse books are coming out because they don't have a free magazine. What I do know that's coming out are DC, Marvel, and IDW because they have free magazines.
Are 3 heavy hitters.
Are you picking up what I'm putting down?
DC and IDW.
That's right. When people talk about the big 3 of comic book publishers, they're talking about Marvel, DC, and IDW. Because anyone who has a free magazine is a heavy hitter in my book.
That's right.
So, couple of highlights. Well, number one with a bullet, at least for this boy. IDW is soliciting the Event Horizon sequel comic, and I'm fucking jazzed about it, man.
Okay.
So you look like you don't know what this is.
It's a movie, right?
Yeah, it's a sequel to the movie in comic book form.
Right.
Event Horizon is a absolute cult classic in the sci-fi horror genre. If you're interested in Sam Neill and Lawrence Fishburne in a abandoned space station that opens a gateway to hell, you should watch this movie and also read the sequel comic that's coming out on IDW. Um,
Hey.
some of the things in here that caught my attention, there's a lot of Godzilla stuff, which is always cool for me to see. Um, but the thing in the back that caught my attention even more was IDW is teaming with Alien Books, which Mike figured out for us is their own publisher. Um, but it looks like they're going to be publishing um, this new Valiant universe. It seems like it's Valiant's Ultimates universe or Valiant's
That's right.
Absolute. They're
Yeah, when
calling
these
it.
showed up in pre-orders, they were like, "You're gonna have an absolutely great time reading this ultimate experience." They were dropping all these,
Oh
like,
yeah, here.
clues.
Yeah, designed as the ultimate jumping on point, the Valiant
Yeah,
Beyond line of comics are absolute must reads that will
yeah,
energize your love for superheroes. Okay, we get it. Um, so
poor
they're
Valiant.
launching with Bloodshot and Shadow Man in
Mhm,
August, followed by Exo Manowar and Harbinger in September.
yep.
Um, so IDW making some big moves with a bad logo. Up next, I've got the DC Connect, and again on the cover, the Massive Verse team. That's Radiant Black and all the Radiant colors. Are doing a Batman universes, whatever, not universes beyond. What's it called?
I don't
Elseworlds.
know.
Oh,
Elseworlds.
you're on mute, Mike D. I can't hear you. Uh,
What?
okay. Minor technical hiccup, but we're back and we're in action. Uh, so next up, we've got the DC Connect, and the cover features the Massive Verse team. So that's your Radiant Black, your Radiant Red, your Radiant Pink, plus like No One and all those spin-offs.
You
Uh,
know what surprises me about
yeah.
this? Is that DC put the team behind Massiveverse comes for a sci-fi Batman epic. Like, it's really surprising to me that they're like, we as a large publisher are acknowledging this, like, big image thing and being like, we purposefully brought over the creative team from a different indie thing to do this little series. Like, that's cool, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, it
They're
is.
showing love back to, like, a more or less self-published thing.
Yeah. Um, I mean, you could try and because I'm sure Kyle Higgins has written for DC before, you
Yeah.
know, but do you want to be like from Batman spinoff 97 writer Kyle Higgins, or do you want to get people like to read your book?
Yeah, right. And it's not just him, right? It's like very specifically and purposefully like the entire Massiveverse team.
Yeah,
Isn't that
it's
right?
Kyle Higgins, Matt Groom, Eric D'Urso, and Dan Mora. It's the
Yeah,
Massive Verse dudes.
cool.
Um, yeah, and they're doing a sci-fi Batman book called Immortal Legend Batman, which looks rad as hell. Um, and then at the same time, speaking of DC pulling indie teams to do books, you've got the pretty sure this is the Ice Cream Man. Yep, Ice Cream Man team doing Superman Kryptonite Spectrum, which is a mini series about Superman like experiencing all these different colors of kryptonite and seeing how they
Yep.
affect him. Um,
It does seem purposeful to with two of these series that are like, here's a couple indie darling teams and we're pulling them over for DC books. It seems like a thing they're almost doing to highlight creative teams that work really well together.
I mean, I'm cool with it. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. It seems like something the big 2 should do more often is be like, "Hey, we're grabbing the people from such and such, from Saga,
yeah.
who are gonna do, like, a pop in for a little story." Like, if Brian K. Vaughan and
And f-
Fiona Staples did, like a Green Lantern mini,
yeah,
everyone would buy it,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Write your check for sure.
Yeah, totally.
So to your point, Mike D, they do call out Ice Cream Man in the solicitation of Kryptonite's Spectrum.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
rules. Like, the fact that DC's acknowledging not only, like, the creative team, but calling out the thing that they worked on that brought them back to this is, like, really rad.
yeah. So Marvel, here's your cue to get the Something is Killing the Children team to do a mini.
Imagine Tinian. Tinian's never written a Marvel thing, has he?
Has Tinian written a Marvel thing?
I don't think
He
so.
had to have.
I'll look it up.
Although, you know what? I get him and early Tom King mixed up a lot. Like, they're
Tom King did the Division on Marvel,
yeah,
and that's it.
yeah.
I think that's the only Marvel thing Tom King's ever done.
You might be right. Yeah, because he signed that exclusive DC thing, like, right
Yeah,
after.
and then wrote some of the best damn comics I've ever read in my entire life. I'm such a fan of his.
Dude, I still Vision is one of those books that I, like, recommend to new comic readers.
Yeah. Okay, he wrote some Amazing X-Men,
Okay.
and some of those it looks like a, Death of Wolverine tie-in.
Sure. Yeah. Which one?
Da, 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 da. I'm seeing him credited in the Omni for Death of Wolverine,
Oh, okay.
but I know he wasn't one of the I don't think he wrote any of, like, actual Death of Wolverine proper.
No, because that was, like, Millar or somebody or Charles Soule or
Yeah.
something.
There's a ton of little series that were part of
Yeah.
this.
Well, anywho, um,
Confirmed, Tinian on Marvel.
Tinian on Marvel, confirmed. Um, and speaking of Marvel, their cover article is about it's called Marvel All on One: The Thing versus the Marvel Universe. And what's fun about this is that it is a 50-page epic told entirely in splash pages. And
That's wild.
it's worth it to me to pick it up just to see what the hell this thing is going to be.
If you don't know what a splash page is, it's, art that takes up the entire page.
Yeah. So it's stuff like this. You got 2-page spreads,
Yep.
you got big splash pages one right after another.
You know what's funny? You would think that comics would do this more often because artists sell splash pages for so much more money than they sell, like, paneled pages, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And you think, like, every once in a while, an artist would be like, "Man, I would love to do a few more splash pages this issue just because of the extra income it
Yeah.
creates," right?
Yeah, definitely.
Are these all one artist, or are they multiple artists?
Great question, Mike D. I have the answer in my hands.
Hey,
Let's see. Ed McGuinness.
how about it?
That's dope. I love McGuinness.
One artist doing all splash pages is pretty impressive.
And Ryan North is writing. So no slouch
Yeah, that
there.
rules.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun
Love
book.
Ryan North.
Um,
Heck yeah.
some smaller news, but I think this book sounds really interesting. G. Willow Wilson is writing Black Cat, a new Black Cat series.
I'm here for it. G. Willow Wilson's Poison Ivy's been one of my like favorite ongoing runs. So
Yeah,
I'm auto buying anything she writes now.
yeah, and I think Black Cat has been in the hands of my main man, uh, Jed McKay for a long time. So
Yeah, that's
I
right.
think it's cool to see Black Cat get handed off a little bit, especially to somebody with the chops of G. Willow Wilson. Um,
Yep.
Marvel's also soliciting Chip Zdarsky's Captain America, which is like a super auto buy for me. They're doing a 7-part one-shot series called Bring On the Bad Guys, featuring their one-shots featuring Doctor Doom, Green Goblin, Abomination, Loki, Red Skull, Dormammu, and Mephisto. And they
I'm not mad about these. Let me start with this statement. I'm not mad about these.
but
In
you're about to
fact,
sound really mad.
happy.
Okay.
I think uh the publishers have found a way to make what used to be events sell more by making every single issue a first issue. Because you've got more random people just being like, "Oh, a new comic with number 1 on it.
Sure.
I'll pick it up." Whereas even if it is kind of standalone, if it's like number 3 or number 4, more people are glazing over it, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's tough sometimes when you're like a collector or you wanna have everything in this little, like, series of comics to keep it straight when they don't do it, like, serialized in numbering. So my collector brain is like, "Don't make these all one shots," but again, our general rule at First Issue Club is if it's better for comic sales and, uh, comic shops in general, then we support it, and I think this is one of those things where we gotta give up our collector tendencies to what sells better.
Well, and think about this, Mike D. They're all number ones. We can cover every single issue of this series.
And I mean, that's the real motivating factor for these publishers is like, "God, you think we could get this on First Issue Club?"
And you know what? Yes, yes, you can. You can get it on First Issue Club.
Tell you what, well, we're only gonna talk about 2 of them.
Um, this is I don't know. It's something. Well, let me talk about this other thing first. Um, Marvel is doing a series called Deadpool's versus Wolverines,
Mhm.
which seems like it's just Deadpool verse versus Wolverine verse. Sorry, Deadpool's
Yep.
and Wolverines. Uh, but some thumbs up to it. It's by Cody Ziegler, who's currently writing Deadpool and doing a bang up
Okay.
job.
We like Cody. He writes Miles Morales as well.
Yes. It's only 3 issues,
Mhm.
and issue number 2 is solicited at $3.99.
Okay,
So
good price.
so that's one I'll probably be picking up.
A
Uh
lot of things working
a
for
lot of
it.
things working in its favor. And then my last hit out of the Marvel previews are uh Jason Aaron is writing an Uncle Scrooge mini, 4-issue mini called Uncle Scrooge, Earth's Mightiest Duck. And
And we love ourselves some Scrooge content.
we love ourselves some Scrooge, even though I don't know anything
We're
about
real
him.
we're real duckheads over on the First Issue Club Discord.
We love Jason Aaron in my CLZ. He is my number one writer. The most purchased writer I have is Jason Aaron. He really is.
That's awesome.
Uh,
I th we were talking to him, or I think Greg and I were talking to him. I can't remember if you were there or not, but I think he mentioned that he has the big Donald Duck Taschen book, which is like the huge
sure.
XXL thing
Yeah.
that's like, it's like 50 pounds. I've got like the Avengers and the X-Men one and this like EC Comics one that's just I love these massive Taschen books. They're just like expensive, so you got to pace them out when you're gonna splurge that much on one book.
Yeah.
But I am very jealous of the Donald Duck one. If that one goes on sale, I'm gonna buy it.
And then you can have Jason Aaron sign it. And
Just I heard you also own this. Will you sign it for me?
as the current writer of Uncle Scrooge, will you sign this?
Oh yeah, I guess so. He's in the Duck family now. That makes
He's a
sense.
duck
Yeah, this
boy.
will be his. Yeah, he already wrote the Infinity Coin
Yeah,
thing,
the
right?
Infinity Dime.
Or is that what it was called? Infinity Dime?
Infinity Dime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um okay, so the reason I bring this up, other than it's Jason Aaron and it's a number one issue, is Marvel has
Yes.
solicited this with a classified artist. What in the world could that mean, Mike? I mean, truly,
Yeah.
because, and I pointed this out to Mike, as you flip the page, these are on subsequent pages of the solicitation. This is an Imperial War planet She-Hulk. It's a splint off of Imperial. It's written by Stephanie Phillips and Jonathan Hickman with artist TBD. So it's not like Marvel saying we don't know who's going to do it, because then they just put TBD. Why would
Yeah.
they classify it?
It's a dang announcement worthy job hire. Here's my guess. I've got 2 guesses. Guess number
Uh-huh.
1. It's somebody under DC contract or something that, like, they're not announcing comics for Marvel work until their contract is up with DC.
Okay.
So that'll just be, like, a fun get for, like, Marvel to be having, like, some traditionally DC artist on this book.
Okay.
Guess number 2. You know what I'm gonna
It's
say.
Don
You're
Rosa.
probably thinking the same thing. It's Don Rosa, which would be crazy. The Scrooge, the be all end all Scrooge McDuck writer and artist.
Yeah. But
Someone else could write 100 issues of Scrooge McDuck stuff. Don Rosa's the guy. This is like Don Rosa is to Scrooge McDuck as Chris Claremont is to X-Men.
Don Rosa is to Scrooge McDuck as Stan Lee is to Spider-Man. No, as Stan Lee is to
No,
Fantastic Four.
well, he I I like mine better cuz he didn't create Donald Duck, right?
True.
But
True,
he
true,
but or Scrooge McDuck, but he defined Scrooge McDuck.
true. So Don Rosa is to Scrooge McDuck as Daniel Way is to Deadpool.
Sure. Peter David is to
There
Hulk.
we go. There
R.I.P.
we go. Perfect.
We find a way to sneak our rest in power to Peter David, a true comic legend,
Yeah.
but the 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 thing about losing your comic book heroes and these people who did so much for the medium and shaped us growing up is that their content lives on, and what a gift it is to just be able to revisit all those classics again, and we've got people talking about them and buying them again, and that's just exciting to see people discover more of his work through that. It's been very touching to see, like, all the send-offs that people have been writing to a real one, a true legend, Peter David. We'll see you on the other side someday.
That's right.
The big con in the sky.
The big con in the sky. I bet he would hate that idea. You have to you have to spend all of eternity at a comic convention.
At a con table. Maybe once every heaven year.
Well, yeah, obviously you have to have
How
Heaven Con.
however long a heaven year is.
Well, as above, so below. So it's
That's right.
365 days, right?
Sure, of course. They abide to man's rules on years in in
Yeah.
heaven.
That's yeah, it's in the Bible. As you hold true on earth, so it shall
Yes.
be, right? Whatever it is.
Mhm.
I'm far more versed in comics than I am in theology, so excuse my ignorance.
Hey, ditto.
Um, you have news, right? News.
I have news. Okay, one thing I wanna say that we're not gonna talk about on here, but I gotta mention it. A lot of leaks for MCU and beyond this past
Oh, I
week,
haven't seen any.
and you haven't seen any?
Uh,
So this is just kind of like a public service announcement to be wary that here's some things that are floating out there that I'm not gonna spoil, I'm just saying what's floating out
okay,
there. A ton of Spider-Man 4 casting, which I think kind of ruins some of the, like, fun, reveals from trailers and things like that.
sure.
Um, However, if you're somebody who likes to stay attuned to this stuff, to buy first appearances and stuff, look that up on your own accord and see who's coming in the Spider-Man 4 movie. It's gonna be a fun one. It's shaping up to be a fun one, I guess,
Okay.
is what I'll say. Um, so there's that, and then the real drag that I'm trying to avoid like the plague is that the Fantastic Four post-credits, scene has been leaked.
Ugh.
Um, it was in screeners, and someone recorded it and released it online, and now it's, like, flying around. But I don't know if Marvel does that thing that, like, I've heard other, studios have done stuff where they've, like if there's been some, like, big reveal or something, that they might obscure it or do a replacement post-credit scene that's, like,
Yeah.
they might only show, like, the silly stinger, but not, like, the, "Oh my god, Bucky's coming back," sort of, like, stinger moment that we had in one of the, Avengers movies.
Yeah, I
So,
saw I saw a preview version of Flash, and they showed a little like a interview with Machete, Andy Machete before, and he was like,
yeah.
"Oh, this isn't, the ultimate final version, but, thanks for coming, whatever, blah blah blah." And then the post-credit scene didn't feature uh George Clooney as Batman.
Ah, okay,
It just, like,
yeah.
cut away and didn't show
Yep,
you who he saw. So,
yep,
yeah, they could definitely do something like that. Uh,
yep.
or it would actually be great if they did a different post-credit scene for each one of the screeners so you knew who leaked it.
Oh, sure. Put someone's name on it. Have you ever watched something or, like, sometimes we get comics that have a huge watermark across them that says First Issue Club, so if we ever, like, shared them,
Yeah,
then they would know it was us.
and we
Kinda
never
funny.
do.
We never would in a million years, it's not who we are. Okay, Batman, Deadpool, that's exciting. We talked about this a lot on the Patreon, even though Greg couldn't join us. He passed along a lot of fun ideas for, stuff that he predicts is gonna show up in these, uh, Deadpool, Batman comics. If you don't know what the story is, Marvel is publishing one called Deadpool Batman, and DC is publishing one called Batman Deadpool, and so we're trading characters back and forth, which will be really fun for comics fans. You know, amalgam, same but different. So good to see a throwback to the publishers
Every
collaborating.
Yeah, everyone please go buy these so they do it more.
Yeah, I'd love to see it more. Especially because, and again, we'll talk about this ad nauseum on the Patreon, so we'll glaze over it here. Grant Morrison, Dan Mora. Enough said.
Yeah,
That's gonna be so fun to see what Grant Morrison does with,
yeah.
Deadpool. Moving on. Did you hear about the Superman cast world tour?
I have not heard of I heard about the we didn't talk about this. Did we talk about the No, we talked about that last week, the Wonka thing.
Yes, we
Okay.
did talk about the
I
Wonka
did not
thing.
hear about the world tour. Tell me about the world tour.
Okay, so 7 cities across the world are getting cast members from Superman that are gonna do, like, a fan experience sorta deal.
Okay.
And there's, like, tickets going around soon for these things. But I just think it's really cool to be, like, such a big movie event, new Superman, kinda the kickoff of this whole, like, James Gunn thing. People are so like, the trailer has gotten, like, more exposure than, like, any trailer in recent memory. So, I think it's really cool. They're going to, like, Manila, Rio de Janeiro, London, Paris, LA, New York, and Beijing, and doing these like little fan con, fan event things with the cast. So just super rad to see more comic booky world stuff doing, different fan engagement type
Very
things.
cool.
Yep. What else we got?
I
Oh, go
I
ahead.
I really hope that, and I can easily see this happening because of who James Gunn is, but I hope they take that opportunity to get some original content into fans' hands. Like, how dope would it be if they handed out those free comic book day issues of All-Star Superman to, like,
Oh, yeah.
everybody that was in attendance?
Yep. I think one of the things I read is that it's rumored they're doing, like, um, solo posters or prints of a lot of the characters, and I think that's an opportunity for people to just, like, have a poster of, whoever shows up for whichever one you go to,
Sure.
like, that you've just got Nathan Fillion as his character, or you've just got whoever else is their character, and they can sign your poster for you and stuff like that. So there's gonna be giveaways and things at these that will, you know, fans are gonna go gaga
Yeah.
for.
Cool.
All right, Matt Bors, one of my favorite comic strip writers from the Nib,
Uh-huh.
um, and has been writing Toxic Avengers, is gonna do a Toxic Crusaders comic. So
Very fun.
it's getting, yeah, 5 issue mini. I thought that was worth mentioning. There's a lot of Toxie um, hype right now because the movie's coming out. This has a new character called Fungirl, who I think is new. It's someone I've never seen before, but it's like a portmanteau of fungi
Yeah.
and girl. So she's like a mushroom headed, has like mushrooms growing out of her,
I love that.
sort of mutant thing. So that should be fun. Matt Bors is really good at writing these like toxic wasteland sort of things.
I love that Toxie is having a moment.
Yeah,
Have you seen the trailer for the new movie?
I have.
Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah,
god,
yeah.
I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm so glad that ended up happening. It's a fun story. If anyone doesn't know the story behind that, look up how that movie is making its way to
Yeah.
theaters. Um, okay, the Marvel animated TV show Spidey and His Amazing Friends, which is like the Miles, Gwen, and Peter show that's like 3D animated with like little kid versions of the three spider
Uh-huh.
heroes, is going to incorporate Jeff the Shark into its next season.
Why wouldn't it?
Of course, why wouldn't they? And this is one of those moments. So I've got a while back, I had my copy of Jeff's first appearance graded because it looked minty
That's like
fresh.
West Coast Avengers 7 or something, right? It's like a
Some
yeah.
some like middle run Kelly Thompson West Coast Avengers book, yeah. And with like Marvel Boy and Kate Bishop on the cover. And it sold the other day. A copy sold the other day for almost $500, which is just nuts. Like, obviously, the Marvel Rivals video game
Yeah.
has done a lot for this character. I think cartoons are one of those things that puts, especially kids' shows, puts these characters into another echelon of like fandom
Yeah.
that people grow up with this. And now it's like it becomes ingrained in like how you identify and who you are, and like
Well, it's I
a lot of your personality comes from like the humor of these sort of things. And I feel like this show in particular is part of what made like Spider-Gwen take the next leap to like a $700 comic, is that like now little kids go as Spider-Gwen for Halloween, you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like this character is not going anywhere. People are growing up with a girl Spider-Woman that is far beyond the popularity of any previous Spider-Girls, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think part of the comic book thing or the cartoon thing is not the cartoon itself, it's the environment, like the cartoon environment, because it's the
Yep.
cartoon, it's the lunchbox, the pajamas, the bed sheet,
Yeah, all the
right?
toys,
Yeah,
yep.
like that's the stuff that makes it enter the zeitgeist, as it were.
Yeah.
Um,
It'll become this such a cute Jeff's such a cute character. I guess we didn't explain who Jeff is. He's like a little like cute land shark. He walks on land. He's like a dog shark hybrid.
yeah,
Very cute.
that, I mean, yeah, you nailed it. You got it in one.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I think it's what made it strike home to me was um I had a buddy over a while back, and his kids are now, oh lord, they've got to be like 9 or 10 years old. But
Yep.
they grew up watching that Spidey and His Amazing Friends TV show.
Yep.
And they said something like, or my buddy said, "Oh, Uncle Vargas collects comic books. They really like that Spider-Man show." And I
Mhm.
said, "Oh, do you guys like Peter Parker and Miles and Gwen?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, we love Ghost Spider and Spin." Cuz in
Yeah.
the show, Miles isn't Spider-Man, his name is
He's
Spin.
Spin, because you can't have 2 Spider-Man and men in a kid's
Yeah,
show, it'd be
yeah,
confusing. Yeah.
exactly. So
Yep.
they were like they
The fact that
identify
kids
him. Yeah,
the fact that kids know Ghost Spider is, like, because that's, like, niche comic nerd stuff to, like, know that name for her.
yeah. I mean, yes, but I just and the fact that they identified him, I don't know, all these different characters, like,
Yep.
whatever. It was very cool. And I think, yeah, Jeff is definitely going to have that experience too.
If it wasn't so damn expensive already, I would be like, "Everyone buy this comic now." But it's already transcended that realm of, like, it's too expensive unless you're just, like, a mega fan and gotta have it.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh, alright, local comic shop day is what, coming up in September? It just got a date. I can't remember the date. I think it's, like, September 22nd or something like that.
Okay,
We'll update as it gets closer and remind people what's going on for it. But Comics Pro puts that on every year. They're, like, kind of the sponsor of it. They do a lot of, um, what would, like storage supplies
oh
sort of
yeah, 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 yeah. Bags and
stuff
boards
is
and
what they
boxes
make.
and stuff.
Yeah. So they organize the thing, and they're making a push this year to, like, push it forward more. They've got a new logo that, like, kind of emphasizes the idea of, like, comic shop is part of your community. It looks like a store sign that would, like, hang out somewhere, which is, like, a really
Cool,
cool idea. Um, it's got, they're doing some fun stuff. They're connecting, retailers and publishers through Discords servers.
cool.
So they're just, like, opening lines of communication between people, which I think is really neat, so they can kinda ideate on not only, like, what's gonna happen for local comic shop day, but, like, other avenues that publishers could potentially help stores out, um, which is rad, get everybody talking more. They're doing, like, marketing and event guides and, like, kits that are gonna help people put on the event, which they haven't really done in the past. If anyone is familiar with local comic shop day, it's normally, like, your comic shop has some extra variants.
Yeah,
And those
yeah,
yeah, and those variants say, like, local comic shop day on them,
yeah,
and that's about all it is. But, like, I think they're trying to make it a little more like a free comic book day where it's like, we've got lines out of stores and there's more going on that's, like, a fun incentive other than, like, just show up your next day and pick up some of the variants is kind of how, how it feels now. So, it'll be cool to see what they do and how they can, like, motivate publishers to participate in more creative ways than just doing a variant or two. They're going to discount um, orders like during that month, and there's some
cool.
other fun stuff that publishers are doing.
That's
So
awesome. I love
it'll
that.
be rad to see. Yep.
I I love the idea of local comic shop day, and I always make a
Hmm.
point to try and buy at least one or two variants just out of like principle, right?
Yeah, sure. We'd be total hypocrites on this podcast if we did not.
We still are, but that's fine.
Right. Different
That's
reasons.
right.
Um, bad idea. Anytime bad ideas in the news, we gotta talk about
Do
'em.
we?
They're doing a San Diego Comicon tiki party.
Okay.
Guess how you get in.
Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Let me take my time for just a second.
Okay,
It's a
okay.
tiki party in like
Tiki
it
party.
right like luau pig and rum and or tiki party, right?
I think, yeah, I
Presumably.
think it's mostly that there's gonna be tiki drinks.
Okay. And you're asking how I get in, like physically enter, or how I get a ticket?
Yeah, how do you physically enter the thing, or how do you get a ticket more or less?
I I get a ticket by showing up wearing a luau skirt. That's the only way they'll let you in. Sorry, that's
They
the
l
only way they'll allow me to purchase the $500 ticket.
That sounds a very bad idea. Okay, the way to get in is by wearing the famous bad idea first customer pin. Do you remember these things?
No.
You don't remember these? These were such a huge deal. When Bad Idea first came out, there were these pins. And if you were the first person to buy a Bad Idea comic book at your shop,
Uh-huh.
you got a pin that was like Bad Idea first customer.
Okay, yeah,
And people were selling these pins on eBay for like tons of
sure.
money because they promised some like crazy redemption scheme or something with like these that you were going to be able to like get something or do something with it.
Uh-huh.
And I think at one point they had a thing where you could like mail them in and trade them for uh a weird comic or something. Do you remember that like all acetate comic they did?
Yes, and they released one of every grade from 10.0 down to point 0.5, but they were all just the same thing.
I think that might have been, like, one of the things that you could have possibly gotten
Sure,
with,
yeah.
like, your pin. I can't remember exactly, but this was always a big to-do about, like, when are we gonna be able to cash in these freaking
Well,
pens?
there we go.
And now it's like you don't have to redeem it or cash it in. You can just wear the thing and take it back with you when you leave to, get into this San Diego Comicon party and drink all the tiki drinks you want and hang out with some of their comic book creators like Robert Vendetti, who is very cool and has been on our podcast before
Sure.
talking about I think Tankers was the maybe bad I think it might have been even a bad idea comic at the time that was a really fun series.
Sure.
Is gonna be there hanging out with fans and drinking tiki drinks. So that'll be really rad.
Sure, I would be much more excited about this if I could ever just fucking purchase a bad idea book.
Or if you could get to San Diego and into San Diego
That
Comicon. I mean,
too.
it's like an impossible con to get into if you haven't been grandfathered in as a previous, ticket holder already.
That too.
Drives me nuts. I never get through the ticket lottery thing.
I've never even tried.
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt, and it crashes a lot. This year was like a catastrophe.
What else you got?
I've got one last thing. This has been a news-heavy
Okay.
day. DC tagged some new events on the end of their all-in timeline.
Oh,
All DC loves timelines.
sure.
They've been doing this for
Uh-huh.
years.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And they know we like them too. So it's the same timeline for the most part that we've seen with like Absolute Power, all the all-in stuff,
Uh-huh.
the Justice League Unlimited. Those are the things that we're like already aware of. So the July through September Superman issues that are just starting to pop up in solicits, those got a name on the timeline, and it is called Legion of Darkseid. And then fall of 2025, all we see is a giant omega symbol, which we know with DC doubles as Darkseid's kind of logo or symbol. So
Uh-oh.
we're gonna have some big comeuppance with all the fun DC/DC Unlimited, Dark Side stuff that's been going on. So I kinda can't wait, for that. That's gonna be really fun, and I'll probably be spending a lot of money on DC Comics in the fall of 2025.
Excellent. I'm very glad for you, Mike D. As
Yeah, love Dark Side.
as long as they don't take away my absolute books, I will be perfectly happy with whatever they do.
You know what? You you would assume that they wouldn't because they've been so successful, right? Part of me thinks that was probably part of the plan was to have some sort of comeuppance and then send off the Absolute comics, but now they'll probably try to find a way for just to have those stick around for as long as need be.
For as long as my
I could be
pockets have
totally
money in them.
yeah, exactly right. I could be totally wrong on that. Maybe the intention was for these to always last, but part of me assumed that like that whole world was going to collapse at some point and everything was going to come back to the normal DC universe.
I I can't imagine them handing the reins over to like a new creative team. Like I imagine once Snyder and Dragotta run out of steam, that Absolute Batman will stop, or
Yeah.
at the very least get a renumber. You know,
Yeah,
because
right.
it's tough to envision any of those books with different creative teams, but I guess we'll see.
It does feel very singular and very creator driven vision for each of these
Yeah.
comics. Like the Wonder Woman one feels exclusively Kelly Thompson,
Yep.
right, is writing
And
that, and
Hayden
same with the
Sherman.
Superman and Jason
Yeah.
Aaron's like run. They're all just like such popular creative teams with such particular voices that it'd be it almost seems odd to pass them off.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, all I know for sure is Darkseid is.
You know, if there's one thing that we know, Darkseid is.
Darkseid is. Let's talk comic books.
Let's do talk comic books. I want you to go first because I want to hear about
Ooh.
Giant Size X-Men.
Okay. Giant Side X-Men is written by some first issue club favorite writers, Lansing and Kelly. What a duo. Never the two shall separate. They always write comics together, and we love them for it. Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, are those their first names?
Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, yes.
Yeah. Um, and we've got a Kubert. We've got a Kubert alert.
S-
Adam Kubert on art
Sound the
here.
horn.
Sound the horn. So you know it's gonna be good. Um, I think I didn't pre-order this comic because I was like, the situation is Kamal is jumping around a bunch of different giant sizes. And I said, that's probably like a throwaway, just like little fun thing. It seems a little heavier than that. It's definitely like very fun. But now I'm like, damn it, I probably should have bought these for a couple reasons. But let me walk you through the whole deal. Like, so we know the story is that Kamala is hopping through these from
Right.
solicits. She starts with Giant Size X-Men, which is like only on volume 3. They've only done like 2 other Giant Size X-Men's. One is the greatest comic of all time from the what, I guess the greatest Bronze Age comic of all time maybe. And then the other one I think is like some Krakoan era thing. So now we're just on our third Giant Size X-Men #1 that I'm aware of. But this one takes Kamala to Giant Size X-Men #1. And so she gets to go on the initial maiden adventure of the new X-Men team to Krakoa with all of her knowledge of what Krakoa will become and who each of these characters are. She can speak Krakoan, right? Because she's
Sure.
like been to the island before.
Yeah.
So she kind of like cuts all the discrepancy off at the pass by just like speaking with Krakoa proper. Um, which is really rad. There is some like crazy X-Men nonsense in this, which is I think like the heavy X-head stuff that I was like, damn, I should have bought this. Where you've got this a future timeline Legion who only has like a little bit of David Haller residue left in him, um, who is going back in time and trying to like wash away the timeline that made him the shell of a person he became. And so he's getting all his tachyon particles from time traveling for some reason are pulling Kamala through all these different time periods. One of the things that I'm assuming is going to happen during this series that kind of maybe got teased a little bit indirectly is that we're going to finally figure out what her mutant power is.
Oh yeah.
And it
Yeah.
might be related to the whole tachyon particle thing. We also see her, like, stretchy skin kinda get, like, crystalline, which maybe ties her a little more to, like, the movie, um, Miss Marvel. So there's a couple things going on there that might be interesting and some, like, fun canon stuff that might make these comics be a fun one to pick up.
Okay.
Um, we've also got, um, a backup story that's written by Al Ewing with, I think who did Sarah Pichelli
Ooh,
is on it as well.
some heavy hitters for a backup.
It is, isn't it? Which makes you think there's gotta be something serious going on in this backup
Yeah.
story that, like, is gonna roll out into some other Al Ewing thing. And boy, is there. We've got a first appearance of Justina
Slam
LaGuardia.
it.
And this is a mutant whose power is to surpass the ability of whoever she is near.
Oh, she's just
She
the
at
ultimate one-upper.
Yes, she's the ultimate one-upper, is exactly right. And in this situation, this is, like, around the time of Giant Size X-Men, wherein Charles is trying to find like, this is like he's going around recruiting Wolverine and Colossus and all these mutants that he's using Cerebro to find to get his old team back. And he meets this woman who's a detective on the police force in Italy, and she's, like, kicking ass because any, ne'er-do-well who she encounters,
She's just immediately
um,
better.
she just immediately better and can, like, kick their ass. So, Charles finds
Hold
her.
on, pause.
Yeah.
Does she immediately become the best psychic in the world when she's next to Charles Xavier?
Yes.
That's bananas.
So she doesn't totally understand her power set, but immediately kind of knows what Charles is after and realizes that she can read his mind because he can read minds and she's
Sure.
now better at him than and he's like, he's like, "I'm the world's most powerful psychic, like, don't go digging through my mind without my permission." And she goes on this tangent with him where it's like, "There's no way I'm joining your team." Like, one, like, I'm not just, like, leaving what I'm doing for your purposes of finding, like, your buddies. Like, you're recruiting me to, like in the kind of, like, guise to, like, better myself, but when really you just, like, need somebody to, like you need somebody to risk their life to save your buddies. 2, you're a terrorist. Like, you're grooming, like, teenagers into this, like, paramilitary
Yeah.
group. She's just like, "You are, like, by definition a terrorist." And, like, I'm 100% not interested in that. And they kinda have a back and forth, and he argues with, like, "That's not who I am, that's not the intent," and she's like, "I'm in your brain, I know who you are, right?" Um, and the interaction ends with her wiping Charles's memory of her
Okay.
and sending him on his
Yeah.
way. And she more or less walks away with, like, "I'm not ready to reveal myself to the world, but at some point, now that I've glimpsed into your mind, I know that I've got this potential role to play on a larger scale, and you, Charles Xavier, might not like it." So, she's a really interesting character for a lot of
Yeah.
reasons, right? Like, 1, the power is just cool and interesting, and, like, 2, I think she sounds really altruistic, like, in a way, right? The stuff she's attacking Charles on is stuff that, a good guy
Yeah.
might say or might read on him, but, like, the fact that it's like, I'll make myself known on a global scale at some point, and you're not gonna like it,"
Yeah.
is sounds like a villain quote, but at the same like, I'm just really curious what sort of character they're gonna end up making her,
Yeah,
um,
she
because
sounds
she just could be, like, a different type of good guy, like a good guy with, like that's a little more, like, politically minded and a little more, like, liberal, you know what I
she
mean?
sounds like either the modern framing of Magneto where, like,
Sure.
Magneto has just been right the whole time, and it's just
Mhm.
now impossible to argue against that. Or
Yep.
like Civil War era Captain America, where like he stands for the ideals that the country was founded on, not necessarily the letter of the law.
Yes.
Sounds like that, which is
Yep.
hits all my buttons. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, really cool sounding character. So I don't know if we're gonna get more of her and the like if the giant size backups are gonna be like always featuring this character or if it was just this one and done issue, but really, really intriguing. And another small thing about this that I really enjoyed was Kamala and the past Scott have a history
Oh
that
yeah, that's right.
if you remember, he time traveled to current day Marvel universe, and they were in the Champions
That's
together.
right.
So when she goes back in time to the original Giant Size X-Men #1, he's like, "Oh my gosh, Kamala," and they have this like whole catch up moment, which is like, oh, I love the connective tissue of that. Like they already have a
Yeah.
rapport. Was cool.
Well, Marvel has solicited an issue 2 for this.
Yes, it's a different giant size. It's giant size Dark
Well,
Phoenix.
no. There's a giant
Oh,
size
there's a giant
X-Men
size
number 2.
2. Okay, there's so part of this is Kamala's jumping to a bunch of different giant size
So
titles. I didn't realize there was a second issue of just giant size
I
X-Men.
I bet that's like the last issue. So the first issue was issue
Yeah.
1, and then she jumps to giant sizes, and then the last issue is issue 2.
Yeah, could be.
Okay.
So now I'm gonna have to buy these. I'll probably have to pay a premium for them now that there's like a first appearance character, but I don't know.
Damn it.
Damn it, it is what it is.
Is what it is. 4.99 for the cover price. That's good.
It's not
I
bad
thought it was
for
a
a giant-sized comic.
giant size, baby.
Oh, here's another thing I loved about it, that she called Krakoa a giant-size X-Man in the comic,
So
and I was like,
clever.
"Ooh, that line kinda gave me chills." Again, if you don't know, Krakoa is an island that is a mutant.
Yes, it's a sentient island.
It's a sentient
I love
island.
that. That's great.
Yep. I read one other comic, but do you wanna go back and forth?
Yeah, we'll go back and forth.
Okay.
um, so I read The Goddamn Tragedy,
Oh,
which is by Chris Condon and Sean Kuruner Kur- Kuruneru. I tried that, and
alright.
Sean Lee. So there's a creative team. There's the cover. If anybody knows me, this cover just like screamed out to me from the shelf, and I had to buy it. Um, so it's a one shot. It's a period piece, a western story, and it has a little framing device of this woman walking into um, like an old west paper, and she confronts a writer who's at his typewriter, who has apparently written an article called "The Goddamn Tragedy," and it is her story. Um, but apparently the writer got it wrong the first time, so she's there to
Set the record
set the
straight.
record straight. That's exactly right. Um, so then we get a flashback to what her story is, and it's kind of a uh Donner Party esque story
Ooh.
where her father, in an effort to strike out on his own, prove that he's you know man enough for the world and gonna make something, blah blah blah.
Yep.
Instead of making passage across from Missouri to California, with everyone else that was going that direction, he buys a map from a man of ill repute and goes over the mountains instead of around them, and they run into trouble. um and the woman who in the story is a little girl ends up as the only survivor. um
Mm,
but there's like some potential like wooey wooey kind of uh aspect to it, where is her Are they going crazy? Is there like a ghost, or a spirit that is like pursuing them? That kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
um it's a cool one-shot book. The art is definitely on point for this too. It's all like very soft watercolors, and the use of color in it is very pointed and poignant.
Mhm.
As the snow comes in, the pages kind of white themselves out and go almost black and white, which makes the blood really like pop out of the page when you get those like violent outbursts. Um it's a cool book. Chris Condon wrote That Texas Blood, which is another kind of genre piece, and he's also doing
Mhm.
Ultimate Wolverine at Marvel right now. So dude delivers another excellent book. And again, it's a one shot, so you're not investing a whole lot. Um if you like, I'll say this is for fans of like true crime stuff. It doesn't lean very hard into the
Sci-fi fantasy
sci-fi
sort of thing.
fantasy no, it's kind of a ghost story, but not really. Um
Yeah.
so don't go into it anticipating like a haunted house or anything like that. It's far closer to like a true crime thing than anything else, which if you read that Texas Blood is like kind of the same thing. Um,
Yeah.
so it was a really good book. The cover did not steer me wrong.
Right on. I read Dark Honor on SYZYGY, which is an imprint on Image Comics.
Okay.
Ashley Wood's imprint. I think a couple other people, but I always just remember Ashley Wood. Um, this is adapted from a screenplay that never made its way to screens.
Who wrote this screenplay?
Which uh, a handful of
Oh, okay.
writers who've written other movies and
Okay.
shows.
Well, I just didn't know if
um,
it was like, oh yeah, this is like a whatever David Fincher screenplay that didn't get. Okay.
no, yeah, it's uh, not no beef to whoever ended up writing this thing, but I don't think they were like a celebrity
Okay.
writer. Um, I know Joe. They've Syzygy kind of has a history of adapting things,
Okay.
and they did it with like Joe Hill's Reign. Obviously, if you're a nerd, you might know Joe Hill pretty well as the son of Stephen King, who's kind of become a sci-fi horror writer in his own right. Um, it's part of the reason you change the name.
Yeah.
Do things in your own right. Um, so yeah, another foray into adapting screenplays and short stories and stuff like that for them.
Okay.
But this comic in particular takes place in 2020 in New York at the peak of COVID,
Sure.
and it's kind of like a COVID, like an interesting take on like what are the repercussions of COVID in like the crime world, where like New York has become this like desert, and can someone who's bold sweep in and start taking control of, I guess, like what are the kind of categories they threw out there, like illegal gambling rings, brothels, drug trades, all those things, um while the city's in disarray. And I think the message they kind of got in like the letter in the end of the book was that it felt too close to home to like actually make this
Yeah.
thing. Like, oh, we're writing fantasy based on COVID. It's like, well, a lot of people's, families just died.
Yeah.
Um, so it was they felt better to put it on a shelf, um, and try doing something with it later. And it certainly I think reading it in a comic book where we're used to like alternate realities and alternate versions of things, it never seemed distasteful to me.
Sure.
Um, so I think they found a way to make it work, even though it's like commenting on a real thing that happened with real
Yeah.
repercussions. Um, which life inspires art, right?
Totally.
Like,
Totally.
I don't know that, like, they were maybe a little hard on themselves with, like, how to tread forward with it, I think, but at the same time, better better safe there than sorry.
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, making movies involves the whole like, you have to make a trailer for that thing, and
yeah.
that can cheapen some of the impact.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah, right. Instead of putting your story out there, it's like now we're really trying to sell something.
Exactly.
Comics doesn't feel as much of a cash grab,
Yeah.
obviously. Okay, so that's the core
Okay.
concept. And this the crime syndicate, kind of the like mafia that exists in New York in this fantasy world, has this group that is kind of like their third party police force that just like makes sure everything stays in order in the crime community, and they're called the 100,
Okay.
which I think, is that a reference to like some existing um like samurai movie or something?
It's not ringing any bells to me.
Or maybe I'm just thinking of like 300 or something, I don't know. For some reason, I thought it was like a reference to like a period piece where there's like 100 fighters
Yeah, I mean,
or
there
enforcers.
probably is. People that write screenplays love to do that stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
let's assume yes. Let's move forward.
If Yeah. It's always safe to, if I'm like, this concept seems familiar, or like saying the 100 sounds familiar, anything that sounds familiar to me in a story, I'm like, it's probably a samurai thing.
Yeah.
Um Uh, so that's kind of like a cool concept, but they're like getting killed off in rapid succession by these people who are like coming in and trying to like take advantage of the city in
Yeah,
disarray
they have to
again.
update the name
Um,
too often.
and they're, yeah, exactly right. Now we're like the 56, and we're like, oh god, please don't drop it below 50. So the head of this thing is getting like on in age, and he's not really like the warrior and enforcer that he once was, and they need a strong leader. His daughter is this like badass that's in prison, and her sentence gets communicated, um, because at the time, as they actually did during COVID, where prisons were really overcrowded and the virus was spreading and people were like dying in rapid succession, they really started to cut people's sentences short for like minor crimes and get people back out. And they use that as an excuse or means to get her back. And then she's going to kind of take over as like the lead enforcer, and they're going to have this like new like fervor with the group under her leadership.
Okay.
So interesting story. They use the virus as kind of like a metaphor for the spread of the new group's control that's trying to take over, and that was like a little heavy-handed, I think, in a way that felt, at times this comic feels a little corny,
Yeah.
but sometimes that's okay in comic books. You're like, I'm reading a comic book, it's okay that it feels a little like heavy-handed with its metaphors, but
But
other than that, I don't have many complaints about it. It's kind of an interesting idea, and yeah.
when you were describing it to me, it sounded like a 70s crime movie, like a Scorsese movie,
Yeah, sure.
just like
Yes.
with New York crime always just screams Scorsese, and then you just like tacking COVID on top of it, right? So that Scorsese stuff can get pretty corny because we've been doing it for 50
Yes.
years now, right?
Yeah, and I think that's something where, like, a lot of that crime stuff thrives when it's set in the 70s or 80s, because you're in a time before, you know, cell phones get really
Yeah.
prevalent, and there's a lot of things that just like, hey, technology just solves this problem.
Yeah, right.
And so these stories like just don't like uh translate in a way to like modern
Yeah.
society, but in a major city at the height of a pandemic, it kind of handicaps the situation in a way that, like, creates these unique circumstances. So, it's just, like, an interesting way to use the pandemic to create some sort of tension that otherwise wouldn't really exist, which is just in itself kind of like an interesting thought experiment for the
Yeah.
story.
Cool. And
That's all I've got to
what's it
say.
called?
It's called Dark Honor.
Dark Honor. Okay. I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah.
The other book I read this week was The Pale Knight, which is by Peter Milligan, Val Rodriguez, Chris Peter, and David Sharp. This one's out on Mad Cave because Mad Cave is just cranking it out of the park this year.
Yeah.
Um, so this it very much felt like a comic book version of like an A24 movie. Um, it's about a knight on a crusade during the plague, and he has lost his fervor for battle, kind of lost his faith in God, lost his, pretty much everything. All this guy wants to do is go home and see his wife and son, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it's about his dirt journey trying to get back home. And most of the comic is us kind of getting to see his interaction, his inner thoughts, his the way he interacts with his squire, who is very much like egging him on, poking and prodding him, um, with his like apparent loss of zeal for fighting, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um the big twist of the book happens when you get to the end, and our hero knight's son has contracted the plague pretty bad. His wife's okay, but son's got the plague. And he begs God to, take him instead of his son, let his son live. And lo and behold, death personified appears to him and gives him an offer that if he'll kill this one guy who has evaded death before the next full moon, that death will spare the knight's son. So
Mm.
this knight has to take off um, on this quest for death to try and save his son by killing this stranger who has been eluding death. So y-
Ooh, this does sound like a good A24 movie.
yeah, it's very period piece. It's very moody. It's very like uh like very emo, very like
Yeah.
God can't save me.
Yeah.
uh but it's cool. It's the art is very very stylized. Um it's Peter Milligan, so you're gonna end up with a good story kind of regardless of how this thing goes, but
Yeah.
it was a very cool book. It felt like a nice cool glass of water, like very refreshing. Um
Mhm.
it's one of those books that like I can't equate it to like another comic that I've read because it's kind of outside of other comic books. Like you
Peter Milligan stuff, almost like a lot of the stuff he does, especially like the indie stuff, reminds me of like Robert Eggers movies.
Yeah, totally.
That they're just kind of like unique and singular and in a way that's just like very striking. Um, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, as I was reading it, I was like, "Oh, this is like," it felt like Green Knight, where like
Sure.
the journey is the story, right? Not
Yeah,
necessarily
right.
like the thing that you end up doing. Um
Yep.
so it was very good if you're looking for something that like you can kind of sink your teeth into and like look a little bit past um what you're reading, past what that like literal story is, into like, oh, why did they make the decision to like, include that tree there or whatever, that kind of like the same kind of stuff you would do with a movie that's more of like an art house piece.
Yeah.
um I think this is a book that will allow you to do that, but stay entertaining. Obviously that's like the
Yeah.
most important thing.
Did you like Green Knight?
I loved Green Knight.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, like, a lot of these movies get middling reviews just because they're very, like,
Weird.
art housey,
Yeah,
like
they're
you
very
mentioned.
weird.
Yeah, they're just, like,
Yeah.
weird. And so, I don't know. I never know. I'm like, is it actually very middling, or is it gonna be something that I absolutely love? I never saw
You
it.
never saw Green Knight? You should. I
No.
think it's on HBO Max if you have
Is it?
Max.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I mean,
I'll I'll watch
it's
it.
it's very like it's a film version of an Arthurian tale, right? So like the
Yeah.
story is the knight's journey, right? So if you're watching it and you're like, when will this guy just get there? You're gonna be really bored, right?
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, Pale Knight, it's good. Go read it.
Heck yeah. We did it again.
We always do.
We always do it. A couple other quick first issues that we didn't get to this week. What if Donald Duck became Iron Man? Just didn't fit into this episode tonally.
Yeah. Also very much
Venom.
like an A24 movie.
Yeah, that's right. Venom Original Sin #1 came out for the Spidey heads out there. Almost read Mr. Terrific year 1, but didn't get to it. So I think that'll be a fun primer if you're stoked for the Superman movie and don't necessarily know who Mr. Terrific is. Like, I love that publishers do these sort of comics that dive a little deeper into an origin to get people ready for movies and things like
Yeah,
that. Uh, Gargoyles Demona.
sure. Yep. Uh-huh.
From the old Gargoyles
Oh,
cartoon. She's got her own side
sure.
story. Detective Kaiju, which is a Quested spin-off book. Sounded really fun. Um, and then what else we got? Oh, The Future is effed. The Future is asterisk, 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 asterisk.
Yes.
This is by Reka Publishing, which is a publisher that you probably haven't heard of because they're just new getting into the game. I think, Vargas, you'll be particularly interested in this because of your line of work.
Oh,
Reka is published by an information security firm, and they make comics in the information security space. They're like fantasy sci-fi comics based around the real world of like hacking and cybersecurity.
no kidding. What's the firm?
Yeah. I can't remember the firm's
Okay.
name. If I Google it, they'll come up
I'll have to look it up.
r- right away. Comics. Uh, Black Hills Information
Oh,
Security.
dude, we work with Black Hills.
Do
They
you?
do our penetration testing.
Yeah.
That's super cool. I wonder if they can give me some preview copies.
Free
Anyway,
comics.
that's dope.
Yeah. Super rad. I think it's such a fun idea. And the comics that they're making kind of seem like rad. Like
Yeah, cool.
conceptually, they don't just seem like marketing comics. Which is fun. There's a handful of other comics out this week, a couple one shots. There's a mommy blog. Monster High has a Pride issue, but that's about it for the ones that caught my eye. As always, we love you and we're in love with you. Join our Discord if you want to chat more. Join us on other comic book recommendations and comic book conversation. And we'll see you next week to talk more first issues. Bye-bye. First Issue Club podcast is brought to you by Boulevard Brewing Company, the people responsible for our favorite drinks, the Space Camper Cosmic IPA family of beers. Our show is edited and produced by our hosts Mike DeStacy, Greg Lichtig, and Andy Vargas. You can find us on social media at First Issue Club, and you can join the supporters who keep our humble podcast going on our Patreon at patreon.com/firstissueclub.